There's a strange kind of quiet that comes at the end of the day. It's not peace, it's the silence after the noise has stopped. The day was full of little sounds, little lights, little pieces of information. A funny video here, an interesting headline there, a message that buzzed with a quick, urgent vibration. Each one was a small spark, a tiny little hit of something. But now, in the quiet, there's an echo, a hollowness. You're full, but not satisfied. You've consumed thousands of things, yet you feel empty. It's a uniquely modern feeling of being simultaneously overstimulated and deeply, profoundly bored. Have you ever felt that? The feeling of having 1,000 windows open on your computer and 1,000 windows open in your mind, but you can't seem to find the one you were actually looking for, the one that mattered. This feeling isn't a catastrophe. It's not a dramatic collapse. It's a slow leak, a quiet fade. It's the color draining from the world so gradually you don't even notice it's happening. You just wake up one day and realize that the things that used to bring you joy now just help you pass the time. And you might find yourself sitting there, phone in hand, the screen's blue light painting your face in the dark, and a thought drifts in, uninvited. Why do I feel so distant from myself? This is the story of a quiet experiment, not to become more productive, not to build $1 million business, but simply to feel present in my own life again. It's the story of a 24-hour dopamine fast and how it changed everything. Before we get to the experiment, we have to talk about the feeling, the one we don't really have words for. It's that moment when you're scrolling through a feed of perfect lives and you feel a strange mix of envy and numbness. You know it's not real. You know it's a highlight reel. But there's a little voice inside that whispers, "Why doesn't my life feel that vibrant? Why am I not that happy?" This voice isn't loud or angry. It's just a quiet, persistent hum of inadequacy. It's the feeling of opening the fridge, not because you're hungry, but because you're looking for something. You don't know what it is. A little treat, a distraction, a 2-second solution to a restlessness you can't name. You close the door, feeling even more empty than before. It's the experience of trying to watch a movie, something you used to love. But 10 minutes in, your hand instinctively reaches for your phone. You tell yourself it's just for a second, to check something, but then a notification appears, and then another. And suddenly you realize you've been looking at a tiny screen for 20 minutes while the movie you chose to watch played on unwatched. You're not even enjoying the phone. It isn't fun, it feels compulsive, like a nervous habit you can't shake. And the self-talk that follows is so subtle, so practiced, you barely even notice it as an attack. I have such a short attention span. I can't even focus on a movie. What's wrong with me? I'm just lazy today. We frame it as a personal failure, a character flaw. It feels true because it's the simplest explanation. The problem must be me. This inner monologue is a quiet prison. We tell ourselves we need more discipline, we need better habits, we need to try harder. But what if that's not true? What if trying harder is actually making it worse? What if our brains are just doing exactly what they've been trained to do by a world that never stops shouting for our attention? This feeling doesn't come from nowhere. It's built day by day, through a pattern so subtle we don't even see it as a pattern. It starts in the morning. Before your feet even touch the floor, your hand finds your phone. The alarm was on it, after all. It's practical. But then you see the notifications, a dozen little red circles, each one a tiny promise of something new. A message, an email, a comment on a photo. Your brain gets a small, satisfying hit of curiosity and connection. It's a gentle way to wake up, you tell yourself, better than a jarring alarm clock. But what really just happened? Before your day has even begun, you've taught your brain its first lesson. The most interesting thing you can do is look at this screen. Then you get out of bed, and as you make coffee, you put on a podcast or a video. The silence feels uncomfortable, too empty. So you fill it with voices, with information. Another small lesson. Quiet is boring. Quiet needs to be filled. Throughout the day, the pattern continues. A moment of boredom while waiting in line, phone. A difficult task at work that requires deep focus. Let me just check my email first. A flicker of loneliness in the evening. Let me scroll through pictures of my friends. Each one of these actions feels like a solution, a tiny patch for a tiny feeling of discomfort. Boredom, anxiety, frustration, loneliness. We have a pocket-sized device that offers an instant escape from all of them, and it works for a few seconds. But this cycle is a trap. It's like trying to quench your thirst by drinking salt water. The immediate relief only makes the underlying thirst even stronger. Every time we escape a moment of boredom with a cheap thrill, we're training our brain to become less tolerant of boredom. We're teaching it that the normal, quiet, baseline state of human existence is a problem that needs to be solved. And the more we do it, the more we need a bigger, brighter, louder distraction just to feel normal. It's an invisible treadmill that we can't seem to step off of. One day of this pattern doesn't do much. A week, you might feel a little scattered. But after months and then years of this constant cycle, something deeper begins to happen. An emotional accumulation. A weight. It feels like a fog settled in your mind. A low-grade, persistent haze that makes everything just a little bit harder. The fog isn't painful, it's just there. It makes it difficult to think clearly. It makes it hard to connect with your own goals. You know there are things you want to do, projects you want to start, hobbies you used to love, but the energy required to push through the fog to get to them feels monumental. And so you don't. You choose the easier path, the path of the small, instant reward. This is where passions go to die, not in a blaze of glory, but in a slow, quiet fade. The guitar in the corner of your room starts to gather dust. The stack of unread books on your nightstand becomes a monument to good intentions. You didn't make a conscious decision to stop playing or to stop reading. The desire just eroded. It was worn away day by day by 1,000 more immediate, more stimulating, less demanding pleasures. The weight of this accumulation is heavy. It's the quiet grief for the person you thought you were going to be. The writer who doesn't write, the artist who doesn't create, the friend who doesn't have the mental energy to call back. And the most isolating part is that you blame it all on yourself. You look at the dusty guitar and think, I have no passion. I lost my drive. You look at the books and think, I'm just not a reader anymore. We internalize the outcome of this pattern as a fundamental change in our identity. We believe the fog is not something we are in, but something we are. And that is a profoundly lonely place to be. It's a silent weight that we carry around, convinced that we are the only one who feels it. So we feel the fog. We feel the weight. We see the evidence of our faded passions all around us, and our brain, in its desperate attempt to make sense of the world, creates a story. It creates an enemy, and the enemy it creates is you. The story sounds like this: I am lazy. It's a simple, powerful, and devastating explanation. It accounts for everything. The reason I can't focus is because I'm lazy. The reason I don't finish my projects is because I'm lazy. The reason I choose to scroll instead of read is because I am, at my core, a lazy person. Another version of the story is, I have no self-discipline. This one feels a little more sophisticated, but it's just as cruel. It frames life as a battle between your better self and your weaker self, and every single day, your weaker self is winning. You see other people who seem to have it all together, and the story tells you they are just fundamentally stronger than you are. They have a reservoir of willpower that you simply lack. These self-blame narratives are so believable because they offer a sense of control, even if it's a painful one. If the problem is me, my laziness, my lack of discipline, then theoretically the solution is also me. I just need to try harder. I need to be better. This feels more empowering than the alternative, which is facing a confusing, invisible force that you don't understand. It's easier to accept that you are the villain in your own story than to accept that you might be a victim of a system you can't even see. This self-blame is the real enemy. It's a poison, because every time you try to force yourself to be more disciplined and you fail, not because you're weak, but because you're fighting against your own brain chemistry, it only reinforces the original story. See, the inner critic says, I told you, you're just lazy. You can't do it. This cycle of trying, failing, and blaming yourself creates a downward spiral of shame and exhaustion. It's not motivating, it's crushing, and it's based on a complete misunderstanding of what's actually happening inside your mind. So if the enemy isn't you, what is it? It's not a monster. It's a mechanism, a simple biological process that's working exactly as it was designed to, but in an environment it was never designed for. The mechanism involves a chemical in your brain called dopamine. You've probably heard of it, but we're not going to get bogged down in science. Instead, let's use a metaphor. Imagine your brain's natural baseline level of happiness and motivation is like music playing in a room at a comfortable volume. Let's say a volume of 5 out of 10. It's pleasant, it's sustainable. You can relax in it, you can work in it, you can live in it. This is your brain's normal state. Now, things like eating a healthy meal, going for a walk, or having a nice conversation with a friend, these things turn the volume up slightly, maybe to a 6 or a 7. It feels good, and then it gently settles back down to a 5. But our modern world is filled with things that are not gentle. They are what scientists call supernormal stimuli, a notification on your phone, a 15-second video with rapid cuts and loud music, a sugary, fatty snack designed in a lab to be irresistible. These things don't turn the volume up to a 6 or a 7. They grab the knob and crank it instantly to a 10. It's a blast of sound, a rush, a powerful hit of dopamine. It feels exciting for a moment. But here's the crucial part. Your brain is a master of adaptation. It wants to maintain balance. If it's constantly being blasted with a volume of 10, it does something very clever and very problematic. It starts to turn down its own sensitivity. It protects itself from the noise. So after a while, the volume 10 doesn't feel like a 10 anymore. It feels like an 8, then a 7. You need more and more of the loud stimulus just to get the same feeling. This is called tolerance. But the real tragedy is what happens to everything else. When your brain is used to a constant volume of 10, what does the normal, healthy volume of 5 feel like? It feels like silence. A walk in nature becomes boring. Reading a book becomes unbearable. A conversation with a friend feels dull. Your brain's volume knob has been so abused that it can no longer hear the quiet music of everyday life. This is not a moral failing, it's a biological recalibration. Your motivation hasn't disappeared, your baseline has just been completely distorted. So let's just pause here for a moment. Let this sink in. That feeling of being lazy, that's not a character flaw. It's the feeling of your brain experiencing the normal world as uncomfortably quiet. That inability to focus, that's not a lack of discipline. It's your brain desperately scanning the environment for the high-volume stimulus it has come to expect. That fog, that weight, that sense that you've lost your passion. It is not because you are broken. It is because your internal reward system is exhausted. It's burned out. You are not lazy. You are overstimulated. Let's say that again, because it is the most important sentence in this entire journey. You are not lazy. You are overstimulated. All of that self-blame, all of that guilt, all of those years you've spent thinking there was something fundamentally wrong with you, you can let that go. It's not your fault. You have been living in an environment that is constantly hijacking a beautiful ancient system in your brain that was designed to help you survive and turning it against you. You are a human being with a normal human brain living in a completely abnormal world. And your brain's response is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that the system is working exactly as it should. It's adapting. It's just adapting to an environment that is, unfortunately, making you feel miserable. So take a breath and give yourself permission to release that weight. The story you've been telling yourself is wrong. You're not the enemy. You never were. This realization is the turning point, not because it gives you a magic solution, but because it changes the question. The old question, born from self-blame, was, how can I force myself to have more discipline? This question leads to a path of struggle, resistance, and shame. It's a fight against yourself. The new question, born from understanding, is, how can I create an environment where my brain can heal? This question leads to a path of compassion, patience, and curiosity. It's about working with yourself. This perspective shift inspired my experiment, the 24-hour dopamine fast. The name sounds intense, but the idea is simple. It's not about depriving yourself of all pleasure. It's about intentionally lowering the volume. It's about giving your brain a day of quiet, a day without the volume 10 stimuli, so it can remember what a volume of 5 sounds like. For me, this meant a 24-hour period with no phone, no computer, no TV, no podcasts, no music, no junk food. Just me, my thoughts, a journal, and the world. The goal wasn't to be productive. The goal was simply to be, to exist without a constant stream of external input. And the first few hours were deeply uncomfortable. I felt a phantom vibration in my pocket where my phone usually was. I felt a constant, nagging impulse to just check something. My mind felt like a hyperactive child in an empty room, running from wall to wall looking for a toy. It was boring, it was restless, and it was exactly what needed to happen. This boredom wasn't a problem to be solved. It was the first stage of healing. It was the sound of the brain's machinery slowing down. It was the withdrawal from the noise. And simply being aware of this, not judging it, not fighting it, just observing it, was the first real step towards change. I wasn't a lazy person fighting boredom. I was an overstimulated person allowing my brain to recalibrate. That change in identity was everything. So what does this path of gentle direction look like in practice? It's not about a 5-step plan to biohack your life. It's simpler. It's about 3 shifts in your approach. First is what to stop forcing. Stop trying to force motivation. Stop trying to force focus. When you're feeling that foggy, restless, unmotivated state, recognize it for what it is, a signal that your system is depleted. Trying to force yourself to do a difficult, creative task in that state is like trying to drive a car with an empty gas tank by yelling at the engine. It doesn't work, and it only creates more frustration. Instead of forcing it, the most productive thing you can do is the opposite. Allow yourself to rest, to be bored, to do something simple and analog. The motivation will return, but only after your brain has had a chance to recover. You can't squeeze water from a stone. Second is what to start noticing. This is about cultivating awareness, not judgment. Start noticing the tiny moments before you reach for a distraction. What is the feeling that precedes the action? Is it a flicker of anxiety about a work project? Is it a pang of loneliness? Is it just a subtle wave of boredom? Don't try to fix the feeling. Don't try to resist the urge. Just notice it. Ah, you can say to yourself, there it is, the restlessness. That tiny moment of observation creates a sliver of space. It's in that space that choice becomes possible. You may still reach for the phone. That's okay. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness. Over time, that space will get wider. Finally, is what to allow long-term. Allow for boredom. This is the hardest part. We have been conditioned to see boredom as a personal failing, a state to be avoided at all costs. But boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the fertile ground where your brain resets itself. It's the quiet room where your natural volume knob and recalibrate. When you feel bored, try to reframe it. This isn't emptiness. This is spaciousness. This is your mind healing. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but on the other side of that discomfort is the return of your own thoughts, your own ideas, your own natural, unforced curiosity about the world. As my 24 hours of quiet came to an end, the change wasn't a lightning bolt. It was more like the sun rising after a long, cloudy day, a slow, gentle increase in light and color. I woke up the next morning, and for the first time in years, my first thought wasn't to check my phone. My first thought was just a thought, my own. I made coffee, and I just made coffee. I could feel the warmth of the mug in my hands. I could smell the aroma. I wasn't listening to a podcast or scrolling through a news feed. I was just there, in that small, simple moment. And it felt enough. The quiet music was audible again. Later that day, I sat down to read a book. I read for an hour, an entire, uninterrupted hour. The words on the page formed a world in my mind without being constantly fractured by the impulse to look away. My focus wasn't something I had to wrestle into submission. It was just there, available to me, like an old friend who had finally returned home. The most profound change was the return of ideas. In the quiet, my own mind started to speak up, little creative sparks for projects, solutions to problems I'd been stuck on, memories I hadn't thought of in years. My brain, no longer overwhelmed with incoming information, finally had the space to create its own. This is the emotional state we are seeking. It's not a state of hyper-productivity or peak performance. It's not about becoming a machine that gets more done. It's about peace. It's a gentle, stable sense of presence. It's the feeling of being the driver of your own mind again, rather than a passenger being dragged along by an endless stream of notifications. It's the quiet joy of being able to hear your own thoughts. It's the feeling of being at home in your own life, and it is worth more than all the instant gratifications in the world. Now, it's important to be completely honest about this. A 24-hour dopamine fast is not a magic pill. It is not a permanent cure. The world doesn't change. The day after my experiment, my phone was still there. The notifications still came. The internet was still an infinite buffet of high-volume distractions. The environment that caused the problem in the first place still exists. And there have been days since then where I have fallen back into the old patterns. Days where I've scrolled mindlessly. Days where I've felt that familiar fog start to creep back in. But here's what's different now. I don't blame myself for it. I see those days not as a sign of failure, but as a sign of the environment's power. It's a reminder of what I'm up against, and instead of spiraling into shame, I recognize the feeling. Ah, there it is, the overstimulation, My brain needs a bit of quiet. Progress is not a straight line. It is not about becoming a perfect, disciplined monk who is immune to distraction. It is about a gentle return. It's about noticing when you've drifted off course and gently, compassionately guiding yourself back. It's about having more good days than bad days. It's about replacing the narrative of self-blame with a narrative of self-awareness. A bad day doesn't erase your progress. It doesn't mean you failed. It just means you're human. And giving yourself the grace to be human is perhaps the most important part of this entire journey. The goal is not perfection. The goal is a lasting, compassionate relationship with your own mind. In the end, this journey wasn't about adding new habits or productivity hacks to my life. It was about taking things away. It was about creating space. The goal was never to do more, but to finally feel content with doing less. It was about realizing that my brain wasn't broken, it was just overwhelmed, and that my desire for constant distraction wasn't a sign of weakness, but a symptom of a world that has become too loud. The most powerful discovery was that true focus, creativity, and peace aren't things you have to chase or manufacture. They are our natural state. They are what's waiting for us underneath all the noise. We don't have to build them, we just have to uncover them. This was my experience, but I have a feeling it might feel familiar to you too. That sense of being full but not satisfied. That quiet ache of being disconnected from yourself. That feeling that you should be happier than you are. If any of this resonated with you, just know this: you are not alone in feeling this way. And understanding that, truly understanding that you are not broken, is the first and most important step to finding your way back to the quiet. Thank you for spending this time with me.